Hey, what's going on, guys? Sam Crowley. Welcome to the Daily Splash. Today, May 6, 2020. Hope you're all having a great day. Just uploaded a new podcast. Make sure you check it out called Paint the Fence. Paint the Fence. I never even wanted to do a Karate Kid reference until I got to the very end of the podcast, and I'll tell you what it was about and why it's important for you. So, welcome, everybody, to our Every Day is Saturday group of dreamers, doers, and entrepreneurs on this beautiful Wednesday, the Wednesday after our really awesome podcasting training that we did yesterday. A lot of great feedback. Thank you so much. If you want to check it out, you can go to my YouTube channel. I'm going to upload it inside the group here today as well. So it'll be the how to go from beginner to expert with podcasting. And I think it's funny that if you pay attention and you follow along in that training, you will be further ahead than anybody you know relative to podcasting. All right. The only person who might be a little further ahead that you know is me. Okay, that's about the only person. Other than that, you're going to be right there. So I want to make sure that just make sure I got everything inside the group set up. Boom. Let's see. All right, cool. So what's going on? What's everybody doing today? We got maybe a little bit of a late arriving crowd. Is that right on today? Okay, so we are late inside. Okay, cool. And I think it's so we do have people. Great. I just want to make sure. Like, hey, is this thing working or not? So I recorded the podcast today. Didn't realize until I got like halfway through that it was 15 years ago today that I quit my job. And I want to talk about, man, giving myself. If I could just give myself a 15 years ago advice, it would be to proceed without any fear. Just don't have any fear, and it's okay to, be a little bit uneasy, maybe have a little bit of anxiety. Those are natural. I mean, those are perfectly fine, But to not proceed because you don't know what the outcome's going to be like, I'm telling you, man, that's a bad way to go through it. I think, at the age of 35, you 15, 37. Well, I was going to turn 37 in June that year, so I was 36 years old 15 years ago. The advice I would give to myself is just don't give up, man. Just don't give up. It's not going to be easy, but none of this stuff is. And so as I see, hey, what's up, Judy? Great to see you. As I see, individuals getting started in their entrepreneurial dream and whatever it is they want to do, I see a lot of uncertainty, and then, they're just, if you're unsure and you don't realize success in whatever period of time you think that should happen, then that kind of feeds into that, and then you start to kind of solidify that doubt in your mind, like, well, I knew it wasn't going to work. I knew, I couldn't do this. When that's not even true at all. You got to create momentum. You got to have just small wins. And I look back and, I think about how I left my job on a Friday, and it was a beautiful Friday morning. I remember driving into work, and I remember a couple of things. Is that number one, everybody is replaceable. So no matter how great you are at what you do, you could be replaced in a New York minute. I was with the same company for 15 years. I'd started in telephone sales in 1990, and within the prior 3 years, I'd been promoted, 3 times in 4 years. And my God, I was making a base salary of over $100,000 in 2005 for a kid that's got just a couple college credits. It's pretty wild. So to have the audacity to quit that and to give all of that up with 3 kids under the age of 5. Actually, our third hadn't even been born. My wife was 6 months pregnant at the time. So imagine that, by October that year, I would have had 3 kids under the age of 5, filing bankruptcy. And I laugh now, but I'm glad I didn't realize how crazy that was back then. I knew it was nuts because nobody I knew was, even thinking about leaving a job, let alone becoming an entrepreneur, let alone building something on the internet, this thing that you still needed dial-up to be able to view anything. I mean, YouTube hadn't even been invented. Think about that. YouTube wasn't even around when I first got started. So, I mean, all of that stuff is just so nuts to think back that, who would ever have the audacity to go and do something that nobody else was even thinking about doing, and then to try to make a go of it and to try to feed a family of, growing family of 4. I mean, my daughter, Paige wasn't even born. I just think how crazy that is. So when I was podcasting today, I probably got 5, 6, 7 minutes into the show before I realized it's May 6th. It's May freaking 6. Like, that's the day in my life. I mean, there's a few days, obviously the birth of my kids, the wedding anniversary, and then there's May 6th, which is the day. And until you've actually done something like that, you don't have a lot of dates in your mind that you can look back on fondly and think, man, that was so amazing, you know? And I'm so happy I did it, because now as I look back, I could tell myself that, I could tell myself now not to be worried, not to be afraid, don't move forward with anxiety. That's easy to say looking back on it now. I just wish I would have learned earlier to distance myself from the people that I was leaving behind, because you can never go home again. Like, once that door closed behind me in the office, there was no going back. Even though I did go back to that office 90 days later, because I went broke, I lost everything, and I filed bankruptcy. I couldn't. It was a completely different environment. I didn't even know. Like, I thought I was so beloved, and then I come to find out when I asked to come back, just in a very small sales role, not even running the company. Just sitting in a cubicle. Going from running the show to sitting in a cubicle. I didn't realize they had to take a survey to see if anybody even wanted me to come back. I'm like, oh my God, I gave 15 years of my life. And they have to ask, because I was kind of a polarizing figure. I guess I wasn't everybody's cup of tea. Who would have thought? I think I was much more somebody's cup of tea when I was controllable. Like, when people could control me, and I wasn't running the show, but they were running the show, and I was just kind of one of the peons, one of the lemmings, following everybody off the cliff. When I was that person, I was way more liked. And I think that's what we find out in life. When you're kind of this sheepy type of person, where you just say yes, ma'am, yes, sir, and you don't question any of the answers, and you're not really bold, and you don't really step out and do something great, then you don't really make any enemies. You just kind of, nobody recognizes you because you're flying underneath the radar. And I think to sum it up is that I didn't really want to fly under the radar. If flying under the radar meant that I needed to be average, and think about this. So whatever you're doing right now, if everybody loves you, then you're doing something wrong. I mean, it's just flat out. There's no two ways to slice that one. If everybody loves you, you are absolutely doing life wrong, because you're not even trying to piss anybody off. It's like, you're not even, because even just being unique and being somebody out there who's daring to be different and say things that aren't what everybody else is saying is going to rub some people the wrong way. So if you're not out there challenging the status quo and not being rude, okay, and not being disrespectful, that's not what I'm saying at all. I just say, think about when Jesus in Nazareth, he was just a carpenter. He couldn't even, nobody in his hometown even recognized him for who he was, and you're probably just a carpenter in your hometown, and that hometown can be your work, it can be your office, it can be your environment. And if you're known as just a carpenter, then you're not even trying to do anything to really maximize the potential. So my challenge to everybody today is to don't be the carpenter, okay? And I use the analogy in my podcast today that a lot of the reason people procrastinate and they don't do something is because it's much easier not to do anything at all than it is to get something started and then leave it out there as unfinished. Have you ever, and I was using the, yeah, you're doing a good job, Judy. Congratulations. Way to go. And I used the analogy last year around this time. I started painting the fence around our home, and it needed it. So I got this black oil-based paint, and I was painted the whole deck and started the fence and maybe got about 50-60% of it done. And then I kind of let it go. And then, Memorial Day came, 4th of July came. It was really too hot to paint. And then kind of the fall, and next thing it's Labor Day. Ooh, it's getting too chilly to paint. Next thing you know, it's the winter, and you can't paint in Ohio, in the wintertime, outside I'm talking about. So my wife's like, hey, you gonna paint that fence? That was all last year. I'm like, oh, yeah, I gotta get that. And then, rightfully so. I mean, just looks terrible. So right around springtime, a few weeks ago, my wife's like, hey, we still have that paint down in the basement? I'm like, oh. Yeah, and it was always like this tense, like, I've got to get that done. And so, and by the way, I will be painting it once the weather turns good for a few days in a row. Make no mistake about it. So it's getting done. And so it's much easier to never start a project, never start a business, never start anything, because then you don't have any of that tension out there. When you start something, it naturally creates a good tension that it leaves it in your head like, man, I got to get that done. I got to get that business going. I started writing that book and I just kind of left it. I wrote 25 pages. I didn't finish the book. I started this video series and I just kind of left it out there. I put a few, but I didn't really get it going. I started a Facebook page and I got the group, got a little bit of momentum, but I just kind of left it out there. And it creates that good kind of tension to where when you start something, it kind of draws you back in and forces you to complete it. You know what I mean? So I would encourage you, and the people that never do anything and they just procrastinate and they don't have that tension. They're comfortable. But what they will have is so much regret that they would have wished that they had tension in their lives back when they started a project. So if you're feeling that, maybe you started an e-course, maybe you started, like I said, maybe you wrote something digital, or maybe you're writing a book, or something along those lines, or even any kind of a project that's trying to move you closer to your dream, but maybe you're stalled right now. That's okay. That's good tension because it keeps reminding you of what you need to do. And then when it reminds you of what you need to do, it's your job. I'm talking to you. It's your job to remind yourself why you're doing this. Why are you doing this? So it's really critical, guys, to not take the road that everyone else takes. Take the road that is less traveled and take the road out there. Like 15 years ago, man, I left that and I closed the door behind me, boxes in hand, just like you would see in a TV show. I had boxes in my 15 years into like one little box, and I was out the door, replaced in a New York minute, And had I never done that, you and I wouldn't have connected because I would have never started every day is Saturday. I just wouldn't have done it. And even then, I didn't start every day is Saturday because I didn't even own the domain name. Some other guy, John Mix, owned it. I wouldn't get that from him until the following year. So I started really getting online and trying to learn this whole internet marketing term that I wasn't really familiar with. And within a few months, I realized, and this is how fast it can happen for you guys, okay? When you pick any topic that you really have a passion for, and because I had a passion because I had to feed my family. That was my passion. I had a sense of urgency because I had to feed my family. And the fence at the time was unpainted, okay? I had started, by quitting my job, I had started opening up that bucket of paint to kind of paint on my new canvas and my new life. And had I just stopped, that whole project would have been incomplete. And I still feel like there's so much more to paint right now. Like I've got this huge thing that I just want to keep going and work with people and coach people and build out courses and just help any way I can to train the entrepreneurial mind that, if you vibe with kind of what I teach, then you're going to follow that path and you're going to have success. I'm certainly not everybody's cup of tea just in what I do now, but I'm so much more comfortable with that now. Like I'm so comfortable. As opposed to 15 years, I would tell myself, don't try to be everybody's buddy and don't worry about not being liked by everyone. We all want to be liked. It would be great if you had a choice. Hey, do you want to be loved or not loved? Which would you choose? Well, of course, we'd say, hey, we want to be loved. But if I told you, hey, would you sacrifice your morals, or would you sacrifice your ethics, or would you sacrifice your belief for what you love in order to be loved? Would you sacrifice what you believe in order to get that love? Then you would say no. You would say, no, I wouldn't. And that's kind of where the difference is for me. I would love for everybody to love me and say, oh my God, Sam Crowley's awesome. But if it means sacrificing what I believe in at my core, I can't do it. And so I think that would be a big piece of advice I would give myself 15 years ago, is to let that go. You're not going to be everybody's buddy. If everybody likes you, you're doing something wrong, okay? And to proceed in faith. Randy, welcome. Most inspiring person I've met in my life. Wow. Thanks, Randy. I appreciate that, man. Thanks for popping in. Great to see you. And proceed with faith. A faith that's never been tested can't be trusted. You got to be able to trust it. Faith is the ability to see the unseen. It is to be able to walk and know that this day is going to work out, not how you designed it, because that never happens, but it's going to work out exactly how it's supposed to when you continue to take action. 15 years ago, I started out today, May 6th, and I woke up May 9th was a Monday. I had no job for the first time since I was 13 years old, and I started my paper out in Bradford, Pennsylvania. I had no job. I had nowhere to be, and it was the freaking scary. I still got up at the same time. I got up early in the morning. The difference was I had nowhere to be, nothing to do. I'm like, oh boy, that started, and I got this uneasy feeling because now it was on me. It was on me to design something, to create some sort of income. And I was like, oh my God, what do I do? I had no coach. I had no mentor. I was doing all of this kind of just by the seat of my pants. I had no blueprint, no nothing. And I look at all the resources we have now online, and I look at YouTube, and I'm a big fan of Googling everything. I tell my kids, hey, Dad, how do you Google it? Google it. Millionaires use Google. That's why they're millionaires and you're not, is because they use Google. And you're 14 years old, so I'll give you some slack there. But saying you don't know how to do it is such an unbelievably lame cop-out. Because if there's one thing that we all have access to, it's the same information. Whether you choose to go get that information and act on it, no matter how long it takes, that's a you problem. That's a you problem, okay? We all have access to the same information, okay? So get out there, figure it out on your own, get the information, and then if you want to hire somebody, I always have Launch with Sam out there, not so I can Google things for you, but so we can strategize and mastermind at the highest of levels to help get you on your way to Saturday and create this zone of genius that only you have. That's what I do. What do you do? What's the problem that you solve? What's the result that you deliver for people? Okay, and that's what you get clear on. And don't go to your broke friends and your aunts and uncles trying to figure that question out because they don't have it. Okay, you're going to have to hang around individuals who are used to creating, strategizing, and masterminding and thinking differently, like thinking completely different than anybody else out there. All right, all the corporate people I left behind, they were just trying to make it to Friday. I didn't want Fridays. I wanted every day to be Saturday, and I was told over and over and over again I was just crazy. It doesn't work. It's not possible. You're a moron. Oh, my God, you're a loser. And then I went bankrupt, and I proved everybody right that I was a loser. I didn't have any money. Just kept going. I just kept going because I figured you can't hit a moving target, all right? Forward momentum doesn't matter how fast I'm going as long as I'm moving forward. And the farther I am from the failure, the closer I am to success. So the farther I can put failure in my rearview mirror and keep moving. I mean, those are great platitudes, but if you don't do anything, then those are just sayings on a bumper sticker. So when I say the further I got away from failure, I really do mean that. Like every day I would wake up like, okay, bankruptcy was 3 days ago. All right, bankruptcy was 3 months ago. And pretty soon it was 3 years ago. Pretty soon it was 15 years ago. And now that's great news for me that it's 15 years, but now I'm closer to my last day on earth than I am my first day. And that scares the hell out of me, not because I'm afraid to die, but because I'm afraid of not getting everything done that I want to get done. That's what drives me every single day. And when I see people not operating with that sense of urgency, they haven't created that tension in their day. They haven't created that fence. They haven't even started to get the bucket of paint out to even try to take the first stroke because they're so afraid. Hey, welcome, John. Great to see you, John Conrad. Gracie, great to see you in here as well, buddy. So that's the message for today. All right. Hard to believe it's been 15 years to the day, but man, I'm so grateful because had that not happened, we wouldn't be connected. This group wouldn't be here. The podcast wouldn't be here. Nothing would be here. There would be no every day is Saturday. Somebody else would have it as a domain name, and they'd probably have a scrapbook of hunting and fishing out there, or they'd be selling T-shirts or something, And I just thank God every day that I was blessed to be able to stay in the game long enough to just be on this Facebook Live, and get after it. So that's the Daily Splash for today, guys. Hope you're having an amazing day. Make sure you check out the replay from yesterday's podcast training. I will upload it here as well. If you want to take advantage of the offer I put out there, just go to everydaysaturday.com/pod offer /POD offer, pod offer, and we'll connect and get you going and launch your show in the next couple of weeks. Step out in faith, all right? You're not going to have all the answers. You'll never have all the answers. You don't need all the answers. You just need the faith of a mustard seed and get going. Everything will be just fine. Everything will be just fine. Don't listen to the masses, all right? Because when you listen to the masses, the M is silent. I think we end on that. Let's just end with that. All right, you guys having a great rest of your day. If I can help you at all, post in the comments. What's going on? What are you working on? How can we help you? All right, we'll see you guys back here tomorrow on the Daily Splash. Take care.